Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 94. TidyX is a screencast where we go through and explain how our code works. My name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name is Patrick Ward. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick. At Tidy_explained is TidyX on Twitter. Tidy.explained@gmail.com is TidyX on Gmail. You can open up a GitHub issue in the repo. You can always like and subscribe on YouTube and drop a comment in the comment section, which seems to be the preferred way for people to access us. And if you enjoy what we're doing, we do have a Patreon, and you can go over there. And if you want to buy us a cup of coffee or a beer, we are super appreciative of that as well.
Definitely. Yeah, we definitely appreciate doing this or definitely enjoy doing this and appreciate any support that you feel like you can provide. All right, so the last several episodes we've been working through our Markdown, explaining the formatting, how to use it, different use cases, kind of making a case for the value of our Markdown, though it's kind of self-explanatory, so I don't think we have to try all that hard. It's a pretty sweet topic there. But we're going through and explaining how the different components work. And one thing that I've been really excited that we've been working towards, and now we get to do this week, is talking about parameterized reports. And so parameterized reports allow you to do some pretty sweet things, kind of offload some of the work that you might manually have to do normally. But now you can have, you can set up your reports so that other people can do that, or it's really easy for you to take in these new requests. So let's get this thing started. So let me share the screen so Patrick can see what we're talking about here, and let us go from there. All right. So
Here we go.
Episode 94, Parameterized Reports. So as we've discussed ad nauseum, our Markdown facilitates reproducible reports that are able to be rerun at the click of a button. All you have to do is click that button right here in our studio, and it'll rerun your report exactly as you had it before. If there's randomness, you should be setting your seeds and whatnot. But it'll be able to regenerate that exact report that you generated earlier, as long as the data has not changed and all these other stuff. But you're able to reproduce everything that had occurred in your last report. But what if there's a scenario where every time you run the report, you need something to change? So like maybe one of your assumptions have changed, the model type, the time period you want to be running things by, but functionally the actual report contents, you don't want that to change. You just want one aspect of your report to change. Or your manager, you're working at a company and you generate a report for your manager, and your manager said, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. You're a rock star. But I would love to have this same report for these 5 different company stock performances." I don't know. I'm just coming up with a scenario where it's your code functionally doesn't change, but they want it to be run multiple times for different situations.
The report and the code don't change. The only thing that changes are the parameters that you highlight. So for example, I wrote this report. It gives us the fourth quarter earnings of every company on the New York Stock Exchange, and I'm highlighting Nike. And then my boss comes back and says, "Hey, this is great. Can I get Under Armour and Adidas reports as well?" Same report now shows where those companies are, and now it's
exactly
all the same information, just different company that we're highlighting.
Exactly. It's just minor differences in what you're doing. And so what you could do is, in that scenario there, you could copy and paste your code and title 1 quarterly earnings Nike, and quarterly earnings Under Armour, quarterly earnings Adidas. But that's kind of a waste of time. Now you've got this copied code floating all around that if you update in one, you have to make sure that you update in all the others, and that's just a pain. Or what you could do is you could use parameters and set those in your YAML header and call them rather than updating the values directly inside of your report. And so now you'll just have a quarterly earnings report, which has the parameter for company, and you can set the options to be Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour, and your boss, anytime they want to see the quarterly earnings, can run your report and select which company they're interested in.
That's it.
And so, yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's a cool feature that exists in our Markdown, and we're excited to go through this.
Yep.
So the way you do this is, last week we covered the contents of the YAML header, and you have, your standard entries here: title, author, date, output. Parameterized reports add this new component, params, where the child contents indicates the name of the parameter and their values, and also how to set them, and we'll get to that in a second. So inside of your parameterized report, you'll have this params as like the top level, and then you'll have your parameter name. So in this case, I have my parameter value and my param value, and they take the values 10 and 20. And so you can also see, for example, in this report here, we have this params, new line, spaced in 2, we have demo param 1 and demo param 2, and they have the values as a string, 1000, and as a numeric value of 3000. These are just random values we picked out of a hat. There's no real, it can be whatever you want it to be or need it to be. Parameter values can also have child components, and this is so that for interactive user inputs, you specify which Shiny input widget to be using. So for interactive setting of the parameters, it actually opens up a little Shiny app that runs and sets the values. And so in which case then there's Shiny widget arguments that you can be setting. So once again, we have my parameter value. We set the label, which is just like the Shiny widget label. So we can actually do question mark Shiny numeric input, and we can see the matching here. So we have label, value, type means numeric here, and then I'm only setting a maximum value. I'm not setting a minimum value for this numeric input or the step or the width. The width is not important in this situation. And so now if somebody were to go and click, I want to render the report interactively, it'll then pop up a Shiny module window where they can then select the value of my parameter input. So we'll get to that in a second. Patrick, do you want to go through this line of code or set here?
Yep. So parameter values can be referenced using our typical R referencing parameters, $, and then whatever value it is that you are actually referencing. You can do this in the code chunks. So for example, if we were to knit this our Markdown and knit with parameters, Ellis could change the parameters, and then those will print into this our Markdown file because he's actually got it in a chunk. This is going to be really important when we get to the example, because you'll see how we call back to the parameters the information that's being set, and then how that adjusts the time series utilized within our upcoming report.
Yep.
And then rendering with parameters, when you click the knit button, you'll have a little drop down option. So if you just do the standard knit, it's going to knit the HTML as if everything that you typed in is exactly what you wanted, and you get returned exactly what you wanted. So there you see the default parameters. If you click knit with parameters, it's going to first give you this option, and you're going to say, oh, I'd love to change this to like 3006 and this to 1 with a whole bunch of zeros. And I click knit, and now those values are changed, because remember, we've called the params in that YAML using params, and then we pass the $, the information that we want to yank out of our knitted parameter options. Okay, what was this part? Code via Rmarkdown render. Okay, argument parameters accepts a name list of parameters and values. If the parameter is not in the list, a default value will be used. So here is some information around parameters. The demo parameter is going to be 10. If it was blank, it would be some sort of default value, whatever was up at the top. So that was 1000, and then 3000, or 1000 is a character, I think it was. Yeah, 1000 is a character, and then 3000 as an actual numeric. Same deal. Okay, beautiful.
So the difference between these two is we're just setting demo param 1 to either be 10 or 20.
Yeah.
You'll probably want to also set your output from your Rmarkdown so you don't overwrite them, because the idea would be is like you might have a main R script that is running it for from the example we gave before where it was Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. You'd set this up so this would be Nike and this next one would be Under Armour. And in your demo param 1, that would probably be company name, and then here you have Under Armour.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how you could set it.
Yep.
And that way it can automatically run at the click of a button. So yeah, I think that's kind of a high-level introduction to parameterized reports. We are going to go to an example, but one thing I did want to bring up is there's a lot of great resources that exist. So we've got our studio, the Rmarkdown tag under our studio has a thing on parameters, and so they've got a little bit of information here on how you could use it. And then they also, of course, in the definitive guide for Rmarkdown by UA, has a whole chapter on parameterized reports, like about how to declare them, using them, knitting. So, we covered a lot of the content that is here, but here it is from the source, from the guy that wrote out how all of this works. You can learn,
and in more detail,
in much more detail than what we can explain.
Right.
And so I just wanted to bring that up. That's bookdown.org, UA, Rmarkdown, parameterized-reports.html. All right, so let's jump into an example here. Patrick, do you want to take us through this piece, or do you want me to do it?
All right, so we got a whole big YAML here, and we went over everything to about line 7 last week. So this was all line 7. We have a table of contents. Remember, code folding is going to be defaulted to show the code. So in this case, we're just going to default it to hide the code, so that, remember, you're going to get that little click box in the upper right. So if you want to see it, you can see it. And then from lines 8 until 21, we get our parameters. So remember, the parameters are set. We have the child sitting underneath that. So in this case, there's going to be 2 parameters that we're allowing control over. It's going to be season and team. So under the season parameter, we have the different children. So we're labeling it season. We have a default value of 2020. The input, so just like if you're building a Shiny app, this could be text boxes, it could be sliders, it could be click buttons. Here we've got an input as a slider. We're going
by the way, here's in the thing, in the definitive guide, they have the full set of
there you go,
different input options there. Forgot to call that out.
Yep. So we set a minimum to 2020. The max, I think this is pretty cool. So if this was, like, let's say this report, this Rmarkdown was reading from your database and you're adding continual new seasons to the NBA. Or for example, we just had a year change, right? So the season in the NBA crosses a year. So our most up-to-date year would have been 2021. Now it's updated to 2022. The max is actually pulling from the date that the this report is run. So, okay, there we go. So this is our code. So we have the little exclamation point R as numeric. So remember, we're asking for a numeric value from the system's date. So we're formatting the system's date, and we're explicitly taking out the year, which is the first 4 numbers within that sequence. And we're going to just turn those directly into a numeric. And so that's what our max value is going to be. Step 1 is the amount that you can move on your slider. And then I don't know what the SEP.
So the SEP is, so normally it sees these as like numbers, right? And so it would then put a comma between that when it's visualizing the slider. And so this just removes that. This is like a styling, because we know it's 2020, not 2020. Or 2017, it's 2017.
Yes. Okay, that I was wondering. Okay, team is the other parameter that we're setting. So we're going to call this a label of team of interest. We're going to default this to all teams. So you have an option of selecting all teams within the choices. The input is going to be a select input, so this will be an actual type box that will autofill the name as you start typing, or it should. And then I believe it does. And the choices are going to be, we've only called out like 7 different choices here, but you can either have all of them or one of those 7. Obviously, if you were doing this for the entire league, you'd want all of the teams listed there, or you'd want to pull that list from somewhere and make sure the spelling is spelled right. Otherwise, once you knit with parameters, you are not going to get anything highlighted. It's just going to return back that there's nothing there.
Yes, because the string don't match.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's a little bit about the YAML, and now we're into kind of our typical Rmarkdown fare, the same type of stuff that we did the previous weeks. The only difference is going to be calling back to the parameters for the season and team of interest. So Ellis, why don't you walk us through that?
Sure thing. Yeah. So as we do, so this is the this more or less the same header that we've had the last several weeks here. The only difference is before we had it hard code, or not even hard code. It was just a sentence going this. We're talking about the 2021-2022 season. I've updated that, so now it'll just print the season that we selected. The team of interest, did not exist before, but I figured it would be good to call out, hey, we're looking at this team the team that we've selected up here. So I thought I'd add the sentence in here. So it's just saying, hey, team of interest, we're looking at Team Miami Heat, all Chicago Bulls, blah, blah, blah. Just so we have that at the very top there. This code is more or less the same going through. So our setup code is setting our knitter options to echoes true. So it'll print out our code. We're loading in tidyverse, rvest, and plotly to do our data manipulation, web scraping, and cool interactive plots for us. We're setting our themes. We've got a function that does z-score for us. And then here's where I use params to actually impact the code output itself. So you may see in the prior weeks we had it listed like that. So this was this is the URL to go to Basketball Reference to get the statistics for the 2022 season. But I know that this piece changes for every year. And so I can update that to then just use a paste. So to paste in the season into this URL, so it'll pull whatever season that I specify from 2010 to this current year based on this parameter here. Then it does the same exact scraping that we've done in the past. So it reaches out to the URL, pulls in the table that we care about, does some cleaning of the names, filters out league average and whatnot, so it gives us a nice clean data set for us to be using. This plot is the offensive and defensive rebounds. So it takes DF, puts the x-axis, the offensive rebounds, the y-axis, defensive rebounds. The new thing that we added here is specifying the color of the different points. And so we're adding a genome point. It's using these same aesthetics as before, but now we're setting the color to be if it is finding the team in the... Sorry, this is a little bit confusing here, but in DF we have the team name. And Param's team is the team we've selected. And so it looks through the team column to find if the team that we selected exists in there, and then it returns a true-false vector. And so color ends up being a true-false vector of if it found the team, it's true, in that entry in the vector, and all the other ones are false. And then...
If that was... so basically that's a one-line example of something that you would otherwise have to do programmatically, which after the DF, you'd have to put mutate, team of interest equals if else.
Yes.
If else parameters team equals team, or you do it up there somewhere with your data. So removing that step, you can turn it into one simple line of code right there in line 78, which is going to do the true false directly. And because
let's do this. I like this better.
You do like it better. Okay.
I like this better. I think it's a lot clearer and the code is less complicated because then you're saying color is the team of interest. It's either true or false.
There you go.
See, this is why we do this. We live code here on TidyX. And the new thing is also, so we add the points for the defensive and offensive rebounds. We add a V line and H line for the average of both the offensive and defensive rebounds. We use GG repel to add text labels to the different points. And then we're going to color it. And so black is going to be if it's false, so the point will be black. But if it's true, so if it is a team of interest, it will be green. And that's just so to highlight that team of interest there. Otherwise, it defaults to like red and blue, which can be hard for people to see. I think the green and black is very distinct. And then we're not going to have a theme legend. And then this is the same sort of idea for the 3-point scoring plot that we include. So this takes df. We calculate a z-score for the 3-point percentage, and this is the scaling it to percent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We set our x-axis to be the z-score for the 3-point percentage. We set it by team, and we reorder it by their z-score so that it's descending. So the best team is listed at the top, and it goes down. We add GM call, which is the line that'll go out to the points, and so we're basically creating a lollipop plot. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to color that last point, and this is now going to be no longer this, but the team of interest. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, that's what I'd set it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Above, yay for being verbose. Add the V lines, scale continuous, scale color. Remove the legend and set a bunch of labels. Sorry, I'm kind of zooming over this, but this is not the point of the episode. And then we're going to turn it into a ggplotly using ggplotly. Yep. And so we can knit it, and this will use all the default values that we have set already. So it's going through
to all teams. So we should see no green. Should be all black. Everyone will be black on the dots.
Yep. Everyone will be black, and this will be for the 2020 season, which is our default. And
there's our cool little lollipop plot.
Yep. So we've got this. We can interact with it. But say one of the you work for a basketball team, and they're like, great, this is awesome. This is providing all the information I want, but now I want this to be.
We're playing the Miami Heat next week.
All right, sure thing, boss man. Yeah. Sure thing, boss man. Just give me a second here. I'm going to knit. I'm going to knit it with parameters and go, so, Mr. Coach Man, what you can do is you can just click knit with parameters and say, I want the Miami Heat. And now it'll run and it'll go through. It's now pulling all the same data, processing everything, but now we will have a team of interest, and it'll be the Miami Heat. Sorry, it's because I'm zoomed in. It's kind of popping up really large. But here we go. So the team of interest is Miami Heat. Miami Heat are down here. So their offensive and defensive rebounding, not so great, apparently. But then they're also 3-point scoring is also not so great.
Yeah.
In comparison to the league average.
We have a good shot of winning this game.
I don't know, unless you're the Raptors.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right.
No shade. But yeah, so this is like a way that you could look at the years. So this is still only looking at 2020. I kind of glossed over the fact that you can also, this is the slider input. So these are the different seasons that you're using.
Yeah. So if you were like, let's say, this is obviously privy to the data that we have, but let's say you were working for an NBA team, and this might be by months of the season. So it's like, hey, Miami was really hot in February, in November. Can we look at their November performance? Something like that, and then it'll scale everybody to November, and you might be able to look at a team over time. There's lots of options to do that stuff. So it's a pretty flexible way of giving you control of the report that you're about to kick out and send out to your team of workers or your boss or whatever. And this opens up now a whole host of options for us going forward in terms of building functionality within reports to make totally interactive reports. So not just like Plotly with tooltips, but maybe Plotly with selector options, maybe Shiny apps with other selector options, Shiny apps that are attached to databases. You can see our prior series on databases, where now within these reports you can attach them to databases and send them out every Monday, and people can get updated data on the week prior and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
lots of options.
Yeah, definitely lots of cool options here. This really makes things It makes the report super easy to update, which I think is the biggest thing, is making sure that you're giving what your team needs, and without you having to totally redo everything. You can just say, hey, you can knit it here, you can run it like this, and it'll produce the output that they need. Or you can make a Shiny app that calls. So rather than doing it with parameters, you can give them a Shiny app with all the input parameters, and you can use the Rmarkdown render option in the background to render it exactly how you want it to be run.
And the best part about all these things are these are ways to simplify your data science life so that you can get on to doing the things that you need to do, which is probably like 80% data cleaning and 20% analysis. But simplify your life on some of these automated tasks.
Exactly. All right, so with that, I think we can call it. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, my name is Ellis Hughes, and you can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name's Patrick Ward, and I am on Twitter at OSPPatrick, and Tidy Explained is on Twitter at Tidy_Explained. We're on Gmail, tidy.explained@gmail.com. The GitHub repo does have an issue section that you can always open up if you want to know something. Other than that, the most frequent way that people like to hit us up is going to the YouTube channel, liking, subscribing, and dropping their comments and feedback and questions below the video. We also do have our Patreon page, which if you are excited about what we're doing and you appreciate our work, we appreciate you listening. And if you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee or a mug of beer, we are totally down with that as well.
Exactly. Thank you all so much, and keep on exploring your world.